Hello again, welcome back to the Netflix Horror Fix. I'm host Pixie, and today we're going to be looking at the Bible. Well, sort of. We're going to be looking at a film called An American Haunting, which is based on the possibly true story of the Bell Witch. Now, to talk about the Bell Witch, I'm going to end up talking about a couple of other roundabout things, but let's start off the way the film starts off. The film starts off in the modern day, which, when I was looking at it, I thought, Bell Witch was early 1800s. We open up with a girl being chased through the woods. And it's like a slasher setup, and I was very confused. It then turns out to be a dream, and her mother wakes her up and comforts her, and then goes off to read a binder that she's found, which contains a first-hand account of the Bell Witch hauntings. Now, first of all, you would never find that binder. The only accounts of the Bell Witch hauntings come from a lot later. The hauntings were, as I say, early 1800s. The first written accounts come up in 1850s-ish, and then 1890s-ish. So we don't know a lot of first-hand stuff, which is why I keep saying possibly true. It turns up in a lot of sort of true tourist or ghost story books, very well known. Basically the story as it goes, as it survives now, is that a gentleman named John Bell, who was a farmer and landowner by the sounds of things, was also a fine upstanding member of the congregation in a town that I believe was called Adams in Tennessee. I don't know the geography of the Deep South particularly well, so I don't know where that place is. I roughly know where Tennessee is, but don't know where Adams is, not sure if it's still there. I'm fairly sure it is still there, because there's a lot of sort of Bell Witch tours and things that go on now. So this chap, John Bell, seems to have come under attack from some form of supernatural entity, and this entity latched onto his daughter, Betsy. Now, this is where things get a bit muddy. If you read some rather more skeptical accounts, modern accounts, a lot of people will tell you that Betsy herself probably caused this. If you read people who are slightly less skeptical and believe in poltergeists, ghosts, that sort of thing, they will tell you that this shows classic signs of a poltergeist attack. Betsy being a prepubescent girl, being attacked late at night, things flying around, and it definitely seeming to attach onto her. But in the early, I won't say contemporary, but the accounts that come closest to the events that supposedly occurred, there is no mention of a ghost, and certainly not mention of a poltergeist. The community in Adams, Tennessee, were fairly puritanical, by the sounds of it at least, and very devout, which is why we need to talk about the Bible. Now, there are some sects of Christianity who believe that if a supernatural entity does not appear in the Bible, it does not exist. There are no ghosts in the Bible. There are evil spirits, there are demons, there are angels, there are seraphim, cherubim, all of that good stuff, but there are no ghosts. There are, however, witches, which is, why the Bell Witch is called the Bell Witch. I believe the account from the 1890s runs along the idea that Mr. Bell and his family were cursed by a witch. The early account from the 1850s runs along the idea that the witch was itself a invisible spirit, and the account that survives is actually kind of funny. It has sort of this witch starting off as just having all sorts of rather amusing antics and then getting steadily more and more irritable. So it's a very, very interesting story, and I find it particularly interesting in the way that it's accounted, and the fact that there were loads of cases. Again, we don't know how they happened or why they happened. Maybe something spooky, or it could quite possibly be some very disturbed child acting up and throwing things around and getting up to mischief, or possibly doing something magic, or a lot of poltergeist cases are very, very similar to this in the way that they pan out. And the fact that the Bell Witch is always referred to as a witch and not a ghost, I find really interesting. As a tangent, I've been wondering lately whether... Okay, there's been this sort of recent resurgence in supernatural horror, which I am all about. Yes, please. I like that. Downside on my point of view is there seems to be a very Christian bent to a lot of it. Okay, we've got the obvious things. We've got The Last Exorcism, which is about an exorcism, so of course it's going to be about demons and religion and stuff. But then we've also got things like Insidious, Paranormal Activity, The Conjuring, which are all not actually about ghosts, despite having a ghost story setup and a sort of haunted house setup. Each one of those, the entity itself is either a demon or a witch with demonic powers, that and they behave in a way that is partly ghost-like but also partly demonic, possessions, that sort of thing. And I can't help but wonder that whether or not this is sort of an appeal to the Bible Belt, or what. It's maybe an attempt to go for a broader appeal. I don't know. Obviously, a lot of these are going for the domestic American market, which I'm afraid I don't know that much about. The impression that we Brits get of American religion is the extremes. We see a lot about the Baptists, the Westboro people, grim. We hear a lot about people who are picketing abortion stations and that sort of, family planning clinics and all of this kerfuffle. Not hearing we never hear much about the average person on the streets. So if you have any opinions on that, if you're American, if you're not American, pop it down in the comments. I genuinely would be interested in hearing this, because there's a definite trend, at least from my point of view. The more successful big budget horror movies that are coming out are definitely not going down the ghost route. They're acting like ghost movies, but they're not actually about ghosts, which I find really interesting. Partly because I'm more inclined to believe in ghosts and less inclined to believe in demons. I'm not saying I do, I'm not saying I don't, I just find they're slightly more plausible. And I also okay, demons are usually intelligent, right? Surely you can make a deal, whereas a ghost is kind of locked in its own thing, it's doing the same thing over and over. I find that far more frightening as a concept. I don't know, maybe I'm weird. Anyway, back to the Bell Witch. So, yeah, this is a really interesting story that I've seen retold many, many different ways, and American Haunting being one of them. This is an odd film, actually. This is a very peculiar film. It's clearly quite high budget. The cast is pretty incredible. We've got Donald Sutherland and Sissy Spacek. Can't say her name. Spacek. Yeah. As Mr. Bell and his wife, whose name escapes me. But yeah. You know, they're fairly well known. I mean, Donald Sutherland certainly is a very heavyweight actor. So, again, both of them have famously been in horror movies before. Fairly well known, very scary horror movies, you know. So it's nice to see them going back to that. Now, the way the most famous accounts of the Bell Witch story pan out is the Bell Witch itself attacks Betsy first, and then seems to latch onto John Bell and eventually kills him. The earlier stories about this don't actually mention any supernatural murders or anything like that, but this is the legend as it's usually told. And yes, you know, spoilers, this movie does go down that route. Sorry, a massive bang. So that, I mean, on the one hand you're watching this and you know what's going to happen. And on the other hand, you know what's going to happen because it's going through the standard poltergeist tropes, you know. Things flying around, entity throwing a hissy fit because there's a Bible in the room, rape analogy type nighttime attacks, there's also some things that I find a little odd and uncomfortable. Mainly that, you know, this is the Deep South and it's the 1900s, so you have slaves, but they're not addressed as slaves. Sorry, excuse me. Which, yeah. I mean, I know this is a thing. I know this is a thing that happened. But, you know, if you're going to have a couple of slave characters kind of address that, maybe? I also don't really buy the way they sell the witch character. A lady called Kate Bass, who has some sort of land dispute with Mr. Bell, and then apparently curses him or something, and there's something going on with, well, I won't spoil too much, but there's something going on with stolen laundry and things, which actually ends up being very grim. I might mention that a little bit later in the video, but that's the mega spoiler territory. So yeah, I'm not sure I completely buy the idea that witch lady is that angry. Not like, I'm not saying that a land dispute can't lead to something like that, but she doesn't seem that angry. She the actress whose name I'm afraid I'm not that aware of doesn't really sell the anger, and if you're angry enough with somebody that you want to put a curse on them, you're pretty angry. So yeah, there's also a lot of I'm not saying a rip-off, but somebody clearly has seen Evil Dead a lot. Because again, this is the Bell Witch itself, the in terms of the entity rather than the lady who may or may not have cursed the family, is invisible. We have a lot of shots of a sort of wishing, moving through the house, occasionally even moving through the woods. Gosh, I wonder where I've seen that before. POV shots going through the woods. Some invisible entity that keeps making whispery, howly noises. Evil Dead. It does kind of push it up a little bit. There's one fun sequence where the Bell Witch entity is looking for Betsy and is going through doors and walls and drawers, and there's some unconvincing CG, but it's a fun effect. It's sort of rushing through the woodwork on an almost atomic level, which is kind of fun. There's also one or two cool stunts. There's a bit where there's a coach rushing through the forest and it does a full flip, which is pretty cool. I don't know why I always find coach stunts more exciting than car stunts, so maybe it's just that I've seen them done yet less. Not much more I can say about this movie. It's not, again, it's a bit like The Ultra. It wasn't bad, but it was all a bit derivative, and you're kind of limited as to what you can do with a true life, well-known story, because everybody knows how it ends. It's also bookended by these most peculiar modern-day sequences that are only really tangentially linked to the main story, and I can't help but wonder whether they added in because the studio thought the average teenager wouldn't relate to 19th century Tennessee. Don't know. Okay. Spoiler. This is where I'm going to get into the big ones. So, if you're interested in this, if you're interested in, spooky turn of the century stuff, stop. Watch it. Last chance. There's still time. Okay. It's rather heavily implied that in the last reveal of the film that Mr. Bell has been abusing his daughter, which is incredibly grim, and there's a part of me that's a little uncomfortable with the idea of making a reveal like that about a true life person who probably actually didn't do anything of the sort, I would hope. Given the way that the Bell Witch story is told in the earlier versions, there's always a part of me that's a little uncomfortable with fiction making these sort of sweeping, rather horrible accusations about people who there's no evidence against and cannot defend themselves. But the reason that the bookend modern day bits are there is that there's kind of an implication that the little girl early teenage girl running through the forest is under a similar predicament with her own father, and Betsy appears as a ghost to warn the mother who's reading through this binder of non-existent first-hand accounts. On the one hand, sorry, I'm plagued by insects. On the one hand, it's nice to see a twist onto that story because it's well known. You've read it in a couple of books, you know what's going to happen. On the other hand, I work in child protection, so I see a lot of uncomfortable cases where this sort of thing really happens, and yeah, I'm not sure I'm really comfortable about a film making that sort of statement about somebody who is very long dead. And yeah, I mean, Betsy herself is very long dead, and if anything did happen, I would hope that I would hope that people who have been treated in such a way would be treated by history rather more kindly than some people have treated her. There's a lot of speculation that the witch stuff was either a prank on her part, that sort of thing. So if we are to believe that she'd been abused, gosh, yeah, not pleasant. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this one. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. I always enjoy a period ghost story, even if I don't know whether it's just that I'm a Brit and I'm used to period ghost stories having a certain sort of language, but the language used in this film doesn't feel very of the period. And I know it's American, and they're speaking with that wonderful southern drawl, which I imagine people did talk like that in those days, but my brain can't compute that. I can't imagine people in the past talking with a southern drawl. I'm sorry, but there's all statements that sound very modern and not very timeless. There's a bit where somebody says, "Oh, are you all right?" Just the phrasing feels strange. It kind of ruins the illusion a little for me. I mean, I don't know really much about the way language was used in 19th century Tennessee, but it didn't feel right. I may be completely wrong, but it didn't feel right to me. Some of the effects are kind of interesting, but for the most part, it's the standard poltergeist story, except not as in poltergeist as in the movie Poltergeist, because that's not actually that much about a poltergeist. But like I said, I don't know what to make about this one. Like The Altar, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't brilliant, and the sort of twist that they put on it made me kind of uncomfortable. So I mean, a bit tentative on this one. If you're into period stuff and you're fond of the Blair Witch, that's derivative of the Bell Witch legend, quite obviously. If you're into the Bell Witch legend, if you're into true ghost stories, it's worth checking out. I mean, the two big name actors are pretty good in it. I mean, Sissy's actually pretty amazing in it. I really buy her character. Not so much Donald Sutherland, partly just because he's always Donald Sutherland. He's just, he's one of those actors that just has one of those faces that you can't forget that he's a famous actor. But yeah, no, if you're curious, I would check it out. But big trigger warning for child abuse. Although it's only implied, it is implied, and that's grim. And like I say, if you know anything about Christianity and horror, specifically where the popularity of modern, your paranormal activities, your Insidiouses, all that sort of thing, the popularity of those within sort of Christian communities, I'd be really interested. So yeah, put your comments down there if you know anything about that, because that is something that really interests me. Like I say, it's an interesting sort of situation where you've suddenly got horror stories that are very explicitly about Christianity and about demons, and yet framed like ghost stories. Anyway, I am now rambling and making the same points over and over and over again, so I will stop. Next up we're going to be looking at one of my favourites, An American Werewolf in London, which is a wonderful film. I'm looking forward to seeing that again, so I will be back with that very soon, and that will be your next dose of blood, guts and pixie dust. And there is a fair bit of blood and guts in American Werewolf, so sometimes I will see you shortly while my camera slowly slips off the back of my laptop.